Rick's coma. One of the oldest and craziest Walking Dead fan theories is the idea that none of this is real. According to this theory, everything we see after the first episode is just a dream Rick Grimes is having while he's still in a coma. The walkers, the groups, the wars, the losses, all of it is supposedly happening inside Rick's head as his brain tries to make sense of the world. The reason fans love this theory is simple. It sounds neat. Rick gets shot, falls into a coma, wakes up to an empty hospital, and suddenly the world is gone. To some people, that jump felt too extreme. Too fast. So the theory said the walkers are symbols, the survivors are pieces of Rick's mind, and every danger is his fear playing out. It also gave people comfort. If it's all a dream, then maybe none of the pain really happened. But here's the problem. The show never supports it. As the seasons go on, the story moves far beyond Rick's point of view. We follow other characters when Rick isn't around. We see events Rick couldn't possibly know about. The world keeps going even when he's not there. That alone pokes holes all over the theory. And then the final nail in the coffin came straight from the source. Robert Kirkman, the creator of The Walking Dead, shut it down himself. He flat out said Rick is not still in a coma. The events of the show are real, and the apocalypse actually happened. So, as fun as the dream idea sounds, it doesn't hold up. Sometimes the simplest answer is the right one. The world ended, Rick woke up late, and everything after that really did happen. Complete decomposition. Here's a fan theory that's actually kind of hopeful for once. Instead of running around with machetes and crossbows forever, some fans think the best way to beat the walkers is, well, to do nothing. Just hide out, stay quiet, and wait them out. The idea comes from the fact that Greg Nicotero, the guy behind all the gnarly zombie makeup on The Walking Dead, has been making the walkers look more and more rotten each season. Their skin is peeling, their bones are poking out, and they're basically falling apart right in front of us. If you've noticed that, you're not alone. Fans see it as a clue that the show is hinting at their eventual downfall. Here's the logic. In real life, unburied bodies don't last forever. Depending on the environment, it takes about 1 to 3 years for a corpse to completely break down into dust. So if the survivors could just bunker down, avoid getting bitten, and stop the zombies from adding fresh recruits, then eventually the walkers would literally crumble away. Imagine them turning into piles of bones and dust, no longer a threat. Of course, that's easier said than done. Food runs, rival groups, and the sheer chaos of the apocalypse make just hiding sound way simpler than it really is. But still, it's a theory that gives fans a little light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe the dead don't need to be fought forever. Maybe time itself is the ultimate weapon. Western civilization. Okay, this theory is a big one. It says the whole thing is a giant history lesson. Some super smart fans laid it out, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. They think the journey of Rick's group perfectly mirrors the entire story of Western civilization, step by messy step. Think about it. It starts with everyone scattered and surviving day to day, like nomadic hunter-gatherers. Then they find Herschel's farm after Carl is shot. They soon settle down, fence in the walkers like livestock, and try to build a stable life on one piece of land. That's the invention of agriculture and humanity's first big leap. Next up, the Roman Empire. That's Woodbury under the governor. You've got the fortified walls, the absolute ruler, and those brutal gladiator games he forces people to fight in. It's all order and spectacle, but built on craziness and fear, just like Rome. Then the group gets to the prison. That's their medieval fortress, right? But then the sickness hits. That's the Black Death. It wipes out huge numbers of people inside their own walls, crumbling their society from within. After that fall, they're back to wandering in the dark. That's the chaotic Middle Ages. Finally, they reach Alexandria. That's the Renaissance. It's a rediscovery of art, architecture, and civil society. They're trying to rebuild ideas and laws. Later conflicts with groups like the Saviors is more or less the rise of nation-states and massive wars. Pretty wild, right? It means every time you watch Rick struggle, you're basically watching a sped-up replay of how humanity climbed from caves to cities. It turns a zombie show into one giant metaphor for how society always falls apart and has to painfully put itself back together again. Enid is a spy. Here's a fan theory that makes you look twice at one of The Walking Dead's quieter characters, Enid. On the surface, she's just that turtle-eating survivor who shows up at Alexandria not long before Rick and the group arrive. She seems shy, keeps to herself, and eventually sparks a little connection with Carl, but some fans think there's way more going on behind those big eyes and awkward silences. The suspicion comes from her habit of sneaking outside the walls when no one's watching. While most Alexandrians cling to safety, Enid slips out like it's second nature. Add to that her hesitation motivation to even join Alexandria in the first place, and suddenly she looks less like a nervous teen and more like someone with a secret agenda. So, who would she be spying for? That's where the theory branches out. Some point to the wolves, those brutal scavengers who carved chaos into the community. Others think she might be tied to an even bigger threat, the Saviors. If you've read the comics, you know the Saviors are no joke, and having a mole inside Alexandria would give them a huge advantage. But whether she's a double agent, a reluctant informant, or just a kid with trust issues, the Enid is a spy theory adds a whole new layer to her character. Instead of being Carl's mysterious crush, she could be the reason Alexandria's enemies always seem one step ahead. And if that's true, then every time she slipped out beyond those walls, she was reporting. Rick is immune. This one's one of the wildest Walking Dead fan theories out there. Rick is unkillable. The idea first popped up online when fans started asking the obvious question, how on earth did Rick survive in that hospital bed for weeks, maybe months, with no food, no water, and no one looking after him? The simple answer some people came up with, he actually died, and what we saw was Rick rising from the dead. Now, if that's true, things get messy. Remember the big reveal at the CDC in Season 1? Everyone already carries the virus, meaning when you die, you come back as a walker, so why didn't Rick shuffle out of that hospital drooling for brains? That's where the theory splits. Some fans think Rick has the virus like everyone else, but in his case, it's dormant. Instead of turning him into a zombie, it makes him immune. He's got the infection, but it's asleep inside him, letting him dodge the worst part of becoming a flesh-eating monster. Others push it even further. Rick is immortal. Every time he's beaten, shot, or nearly killed, he bounces back stronger. It's like the virus rewired him to keep coming back no matter what. That would explain why he survived things that should have ended him 10 times over. Whether he's a hidden zombie, a chosen one, or just the toughest guy in Georgia, this theory makes Rick less of a survivor and more of a legend. Hearing impaired? You know what's never made sense? How those lumbering, moaning walkers keep sneaking up on everyone in The Walking Dead. I mean, they're not exactly ninjas. You can hear one of those things groaning from a block away, right? Yet, time and again, a walker just appears out of nowhere to grab someone. One fan finally cracked the code with a theory that's so obvious it hurts. Think about it. Our survivors are constantly firing guns, right next to their ears, with zero protection. We're talking handguns, rifles, shotguns. No fancy earplugs, nothing. After years of that, their hearing would be totally shot. That constant ringing in your ears after a loud bang, that's permanent damage. Do that hundreds of times and the world would become a much, much quieter place. So Rick, Daryl, Michonne, and the whole crew are all walking around with severe hearing loss. A walker groaning 10 feet away might just sound like a faint mumble to them. It explains every single time someone gets grabbed from behind, and they never heard it coming. They probably literally didn't. It also explains why they sometimes seem to shout at each other in risky situations. They might be hard of hearing. This theory turns a major plot hole into a hilarious, unspoken truth of the apocalypse. They're all partially deaf from trying to stay alive. The real enemy is the zombies and the complete lack of workplace health and safety. Who knew a simple pair of earplugs could have been the key to survival all along? Space spores? Alright, this one is a real head-scratcher in the best way. Why does the zombie virus only affect humans? Think about it. We never see zombie dogs or zombie birds. The animals are just fine, going about their business. That weird detail has spawned a theory that's totally out of this world, literally. Some fans think the virus is alien, like not from this planet alien. The idea is that an advanced species looked at Earth and decided they wanted the real estate, but we were in the way. So they cooked up a perfect, targeted bioweapon, a bug that turns people into mindless monsters that wipe each other out, but leaves the ecosystem and all the animals completely untouched. After all the humans are gone or turned, the planet is suddenly vacant, a fully stocked, a barely damaged world ready for new owners. The aliens just have to wait for the walkers to finally rot away into nothing. Then they can move right in. No messy wars or blown up cities. It's the ultimate eviction notice. It's a bonkers idea, but it honestly fixes a bunch of head-scratching questions. Why just humans? Because it was designed that way. Why did it start everywhere at once? Advanced delivery system. Maybe the craziest part is that in a world full of zombies, the alien explanation doesn't even feel that far-fetched anymore. Quarantine zone. So, what if the zombie mess isn't a world thing? What if it's just a here thing? This idea says the virus was made by people. Someone in a lab was making a weapon, and it got out. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe someone let it out on purpose. But it started in the US. Now, for the really big thought, the rest of the world might have just closed the gates. They saw the crazy outbreak happening here and made a hard choice. They stopped all flights. They turned ships away. They put up a huge wall of soldiers and ships and said, no one comes in or out. North America became a giant quarantine zone. They left everyone inside to fend for themselves. That's why our group never gets a signal from another country. No help is coming because to everyone else, this place is done. It's a lost cause. The show only shows us what Rick and the group see, and they're stuck inside the bad place. They think the whole world is gone, but it might just be their world that's gone. Think about the ending of the show. What if instead of a big fight, the last scene just zoomed out? It would show the empty, broken cities, then pull back over the ocean, further and further until you see places like London or Tokyo totally fine. People living normal lives watching news about the scary, closed-off zone far across the sea. It would blow your mind. It turns the whole story into a sad tale about the people who got locked in and forgotten. It's a simple idea that makes you feel very alone. Post-baby immunity? One of the more hopeful Walking Dead fan theories is the idea that babies born after the outbreak are virus-free. In this theory, the zombie infection only exists in people who were alive before the world fell apart. That means kids born during the apocalypse might actually be clean. No virus hiding inside them at all. Judith is usually the main example fans point to. She was born after everything collapsed, raised in a world full of walkers but never exposed to the way adults were. So the theory says if Judith were to die, she wouldn't come back as a walker. She'd just die. As dark as that sounds, in this world, that's actually a big deal. No turning, no roaming, no extra horror added on top. Fans love this idea because it finally offers something the show rarely gives: hope. If new babies aren't infected, then the virus isn't forever. It means the nightmare could slowly fade out as older generations pass on. It also makes love and having children feel important again. In a strange way, it turns families into the key to fixing the world, instead of another thing to lose. But the show never fully confirms this. Babies are protected at all costs, so we never get a clear answer. And since everyone is said to be infected already, the theory kind of goes against what the series tells us early on. Still, the idea sticks because people want to believe the world isn't completely doomed. In a story filled with death and decay, the thought that new life could be different feels powerful. Maybe the future is about starting over, one baby at a time. Lizzy and the Whisperers. Now here's the biggest theory out there, one that takes one of the most heartbreaking moments in the entire series and makes it even more chilling. Remember Lizzy, the little girl who thought the walkers were just different and ended up killing her own baby sister Mika because she thought they'd just come back as friends? We all thought she was just losing her mind, but some fans think she was actually the first person to see the show's most terrifying villains. The theory suggests that Lizzy wasn't actually hallucinating when she claimed the walkers were talking to her at the prison. Instead, she may have encountered the Whisperers years before Rick and the group ever knew they existed. Think about it. Lizzy spent hours at the prison fence, feeding rats to the walkers and staring into the herds. This theory argues that a small scouting party of Whisperers, perhaps led by Hera, was watching the prison. In the middle of a moaning pack of dead, Lizzy might have caught a glimpse of a human eye behind a mask or heard a low, raspy voice coming from the herd. Because she was just a child, she couldn't wrap her head around the idea of people wearing zombie skin. To her, the simplest explanation was that the walkers were still people inside, and they were trying to communicate with her. This turns her delusion into a tragic misunderstanding. If she heard a Whisperer talk, it would explain why she was so convinced that the walkers were her friends. It makes the look at the flowers moment even darker. Lizzy was a victim of a truth she wasn't old enough to understand. She killed her sister Mika to prove they could stay the same, all because she saw something in the woods that the adults missed. It transforms one of the show's most famous tragedies into a massive season-long foreshadowing of the horrors to come. What is your favorite theory? Let me know what I missed in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Thanks. I'll see you on this next one.